What is going on, guys? Noah Brewer here, and I have this amazing case study that I've been wanting to share with you for the past like 6 months. The story behind this one is I had a student come to me at the end of last year, I think around September, November-ish, and he had a little bit of a winter. Wasn't doing anything crazy, but getting a good ROAS. This particular student went on to be my top student, generating about $2.1 million in sales in around 6 months. Between October and April. It was about 2.1 million. By the way, you're looking at the screenshot right now, it says 2 million. There was another store that did like 150K because this one got banned and we moved it over to another store. And there's a few things that happened, like we're spread out across a few different ad accounts. Anyways, in this video, I'm gonna be only covering what happened in the first ad account where we initially launched the test and how we scaled it from that point. Which in this video, we're gonna cover going from 0 to 260K in revenue, not from 0 to 2 million, just because there's gonna be multiple parts in this case study. So obviously, 6 months is a long time. We were working on the ads every single day, and there's a lot to cover. So this is gonna be kind of like the first part of the initial scale that we did. And by the end of all these case studies, I'm not sure how many there's gonna be, probably 3 or 4. Yeah, by the end of it, you'll see the whole process from going from 0 to over $2 million in sales. In this video, I'm just gonna break down the basics. I'm not gonna show the product, but I'll tell you the numbers on the product. I'll tell you our ad spend, our gross profit, our net profit. Like I said, going from 0 to 260K in sales. So without any delays, let's get right into it. Showing the profit breakdown slide right now, you can see that the net profit of this scale was about $250,000 by the end of it. That's how much actual cash was in the bank account at the end of it. The actual paper profit was probably more, but as you know, during those 6 months, you have living expenses, you have different things that come up like VAs and stuff that pay. Let me just say it like this: the way that e-commerce works is you constantly have money coming in and you constantly have money coming out. So even though you might profit 500,000, for example, you might only end up with 300,000 in your bank account. That's just kind of how the business operates. It's not always like that, but most of the time, net profit of 250,000 is the actual dollar amount that was in the bank account by the end of it. So I just wanted to specify that. Total revenue, this is just an estimate. Like I said, the real revenue is about 2.145 million, but we're just gonna say 2 million just to keep it simple. Total Facebook ad spend was $490,000, and then total Google ad spend was $14,000. So call it 500K, a little bit over 500K in ad spend to do 2.1 million in sales. Not bad at all. Talking about the product now, showing the product slide. The product was, I'm not going to say what it was because we're actually still running it. It's not doing super crazy numbers anymore, but it's still making money. But the product cost was $55. We sold the product for $100 or $99.99. Shipping, we had a free option, and we also had an option for $12 insured shipping, which was just a way to increase our margins. And the gross margin, after transaction fees, after refunds, was about 40%. And that's including, the $12 shipping. So we actually had a good amount of people take the $12 shipping, which you would think increases your margin. But in reality, that just makes up for refunds and chargebacks and transaction fees a little bit. So gross margin about 40%. So now giving an overview of the ad strategy that I used to scale this store. It was essentially the same exact strategy that I used in the 0 to 7 Figures ebook, or the book that I titled Noah Brewer's Entire Multi-7 Figure Ad Strategy. And you can see on the screen right now, I have the $2 million screenshot on the cover because this strategy heavily relied on the success of this store because I was able to test different things. So one thing to keep in mind is we did not follow the things in this book exact, word for word, step by step. We kind of did things a little bit differently because, no matter what, every situation is going to be different. And that's kind of why you're still going to get value out of watching this, is because it's not going to be exactly the same for everybody. But the more situations you see go on and the more situations you learn about, like the best thing to do, the worst thing to do, the better that you'll be at decision making. So I'm just going to say that up front. we actually used about 2 to 3 different variations of this strategy. So in the actual book, I say, you can manipulate this strategy depending on your situation. In terms of CBOs, for example, in the book, I preach starting with $100 a day CBO, which in this first section of scaling, we actually did that. But in the next case study, you'll notice that we started with, I believe, $200 a day CBOs. So it's not all cookie cutter. It's not praise the almighty gods. This is the word that you need to follow. It's more like just feel out the situation, test different things. But this book will form a foundation and really allow you to understand why we scaled this store the way that we did. So going into the very first test campaign, and I put a lot of effort into this. I really tried to show a screenshot of the results. It might be a little bit confusing to follow along, but this whole case study is just going to give you an overview of what we did with the ads. So there's going to be a little screenshot on each slide, and I'm going to give you a walkthrough of exactly what we did. So the very first test campaigns, we did 2 campaigns with 7 interests. Everything was the same except for one of the campaigns has a $15 budget and one of them had a $20 budget. Now, like I said, these campaigns were already created by the time I stepped in to help. So, I didn't have a say in this, but it ended up working really, really well. If you know me and you know my strategy, I would have only done 1 campaign to test it out. But like I said, it was done before I stepped in. So, and it worked. So, let's keep doing it, right? So obviously the locations and stuff you can see on the page, but in the first, I don't know, I think this is 2 or 3 days, probably 2 days of these campaigns running, we had a 7 to 8 ROAS, which is, this is basically what I saw when I stepped in. I basically just saw 2 campaigns with a 7 to 8 ROAS, and he was like, "Can you help me out?" I was like, "Fuck yes, I can help you out. Of course I can help you out. This looks amazing." You don't come across products like this often, products that just get like a 5+ ROAS in the beginning and maintain it. So I was really excited. I knew that this shit was gonna slap, and we started pushing actually really hard. Hard as in, faster than normal, just because of the high ROAS, which is what I would recommend if you're seeing really, really good results. Don't be scared to push, because your ROAS is gonna drop a little bit the quicker you push. But if you have an 8 ROAS, that's okay. It's fine if the ROAS drops a little bit. It's not a big deal. Looks like we let the original 2 campaigns run for, I don't know, $20 budget, spent $600. There were 7 of them, so I don't know, we probably let it go for 4 days, 3 or 4 days. And we made the second test campaign, which is basically just a relaunch. And if you read my book, then you know that the relaunch is essentially a way to get new interests working without messing with the original campaigns. So this basically just allows us to like relaunch the campaign or relaunch the product with a new campaign, and it usually increases your sales. Most of the time it'll get the same ROAS or about the same ROAS, but sometimes it's a little bit worse, a little bit better. The whole point is just to get new interests working so you can like kind of diversify a little bit in the beginning. Day 7 now, so we're 7 days into scaling. And this was about the time that we decided it was best to make the first CBO campaign. So just like in the book, we took the best 5 ad sets that were performing, the best 5 interests, duplicated them into a new campaign, and made it a CBO at $100 a day. And you can see it on the bottom there. And you can see the other campaigns as well, how good those are doing. You can see we have a 6.9 ROAS on the top one, 9.5 on the middle one, which those were the original 2, right? The 2 on the top here. And then the relaunch, 5.25, so not as good as the originals, but still pretty damn good. And you could see the CBO just absolutely tanking it with a 10.5 ROAS. And this looks like 4 days in. So we're 4 days in, and we have a 10 ROAS on a CBO. Like, it doesn't get better than that, guys. Like, this was almost unbelievable to me, because at this time, like I said, you don't find products like this often where they just sell like absolute hotcakes. And honestly, it feels like you're selling something illegal because it just sells so damn good. Like, I don't know what the situation was, but this product just absolutely crushed it. Yep, so we let the original CBO run for 4 days, which in the book, I say to let it run for 7 days. But in this situation, obviously, with a 10 ROAS, it doesn't really matter. So we let it run for 4 days. And then on day 11, we took that $100 a day CBO and duplicated it into a new campaign, right? So we didn't increase the budget of the existing, we duplicated it into a new campaign and made the new one $200 a day. And you can see it on here right below the 100. The 200 per day looks like it's about 4 days in this screenshot, and it's hitting a 7 ROAS on a $200 per day CBO. Like, hallelujah, perfect, couldn't get better than that. And the $100 per day on the 8th day is still a 10 ROAS. How amazing is that? And I don't think it's necessarily this particular strategy that I was following that made it sell so good. I genuinely think that it was just the product and the timing, right? Like, I followed this method with hundreds of stores by now, and it's not like this every time. Of course it's not. So you can't blame the strategy 100%, but I have seen very similar things where like the CBO will do better than the original interest. But you know, I just want to share this moment because at the time, like I said, this is like probably by now like 8 or 9 months ago, and it was just absolutely heavenly. Now we have 5 campaigns running. 2 of them are CBOs and 3 of them were the original 2 and then the relaunch. So still pretty damn early on. We're still in the first 2 weeks, and the store's already doing a few thousand a day. You know, we have a 10 ROAS on the 100, a 7 ROAS on the 200, and then, you know, 5+ ROAS on all the other campaigns. So the total numbers so far, and this is exciting to say, but $4,800 spent, so let's just call it $5,000 spent to make $37,000 back in revenue. And this is just what tracked on the ads manager. Of course, there was a little bit more revenue than the ads manager says, just because sometimes sales don't track, that's fine. But even then, like $5K spent to get $37K back is beautiful, especially with our 40% gross margin. So you can see the picture of meme heaven, because this is exactly how we were feeling in this moment. Like the gates to heaven just opened, and we saw Harambe, we saw Paul Walker, Billy Mays, Michael Jackson, Tupac, all the absolute legends. And it's not that we were dying, we were actually coming alive. And you know, the heaven's gate just opened, and we were like, what did we just discover? We're about to make a hell of a lot of money. So that was funny, but let's get back into it. So in the book, I mentioned that you don't want to just endlessly scale CBOs. You actually want to diversify a little bit. So the $100 CBO and the $200 CBO that we made so far, those had the same interest in it. So here what we decided to do is take a different set of 5 interests that did really well for us and put them into a new CBO at 100 a day. So we basically just did it again, just with new interests this time. And then of course we waited a few days, and then we made the 200 per day based on that one. So you can see in this screenshot, we have the original $100 per day, the original $200 per day, and then we have the second $100 per day cranking with a 6.2 ROAS. Not as good. Like I said, your ROAS is going to drop when you scale, but that's okay. Okay, and then we have the second top 5 CBO 200 with a 4.6 ROAS. So I think this was our first time seeing less than a 5 ROAS, but spending $200 is perfectly fine. We'll take a 4.6 any day of the week. Even though we had other campaigns doing a 7, you know, a little 7 piece, we'll take 4.6 all day. So that was all good. All right, so we are now 32 days into the scale, and as you can see, a little update on the bottom, we have 21,000 spent for 123,000 back, or 124,000 back. So really good numbers so far. And funny story is essentially sometimes with CBOs, when you have multiple different types of CBOs, like we have 2 100 per days at this point and 2 200 per days, and 10 ad sets inside of CBOs, because there's 2 CBOs with 5 ad sets each. Essentially what we decided to do was take the top 5 ad sets from the 4 CBOs and try a CBO. So this was basically like an Inception hyper CBO, right? Like this was the top 5 ad sets from CBOs in a CBO. I'm sorry if that confused you, but you can see right here, top five, $100, because it is the top 5 ad sets out of the top 5 ad sets. You can see this cranking with a little 4.95 piece, doing good. But I just want to say, because I'm excited, I'm on the hit 100K in sales slide now, and you can see a little baby like, yes, like this is the great moment in any scale when you finally hit 100K, because most of the time it's a big accomplishment for some people. And a little update, the daily revenue 6K, and daily ad spend was about 1K. So the profits at this point were about 2 grand a day, which when you're spending 1K and you're making 2 grand in profit is just absolute gold, right? Like that's just amazing. And I wish that I could have 1,000 stores that are doing this, because we would be Jeff Bezos. We would be cranking around in a couple $100 billion. But let's listen to this case study and hope that this is helping you guys, because it's a lot of information, and I'm trying to be as educational and entertainment a little bit, but not too much, so we can keep it valuable. So at this point, I know you've heard it a million times, you're following me on YouTube, I say this all the time, but it's essentially repetition, right? Like we had something that was working really, really well, which was making a $100 CBO, duping it into 200, and we just replicated that over and over. And you can see at this point, I don't know exactly how many days this is, it's about 45 days in, we had $38,000 spent and $193,000 back. So we were still getting a little 5-piece ROAS on the ad account as a whole at this point. And we just kept on doing it, right? Like I think we did it like 3 or 4 times where we just made a $100 CBO and then a 200 following that, and then did it again and again. And you can see that we were just stacking bread at this point, just making CBOs, 10 minutes a day, making like 2 grand a day. Absolutely wonderful. So moving into the next step, like I said, 45 days in is when we decided to start doing this. The CBOs stopped doing as well, so we weren't getting no 5+ ROAS on the CBOs anymore, and we had a little bit of a cry to ourselves. But that's a great indication that it's time to get into either retargeting or lookalikes. And you could also do both, but we chose to go the lookalike route. And I showed you a screenshot here of how we set the campaign up. It was basically 10 ad sets, each ad set with its own percentage. And since it was the first lookalike that we made, we decided to do all website visitors, which is usually where I start out, and that's where I recommend starting out most of the time. And then we kind of work our way up. So we let this campaign run for a couple days, and then we did the add to carts, and then you do the checkouts and the purchases and so on. And our plan from this point was to just make I don't know, 4 or 5 lookalike campaigns, and then start doing CBOs. And then something happened, which we'll get into later. But made the rest of the lookalikes. So we're about 2 months in now, and you can see in this screenshot, or 58 days in now, 2 months, whatever. You can see the screenshot that we have the website views 180 lookalike at $15 a day, and that was cranking a 3.6 ROAS, so not as good as before. And you can see the other add to cart lookalike campaign was cranking a 3.3, so kind of a little bit slow there. But the checkouts were popping a 5-piece ROAS, which is pretty good. Like we'll take that. You can see on the bottom here we have $60,000 spent to bring back $268,000 in revenue on a 4.4 ROAS. So if you ever see these numbers in your ad account, by the way, just knew that you pretty much win at life. You're going to be able to replicate this, and it's going to be really, really good for you. But like I said, and this brings us to the end of the case study. I know that you guys want to keep on learning, but we did cover exactly how to go from 0 to 268K. But you know what happened next? We were thinking that we were onto something big, but you know what happened? About 2 months in, we got the ad account is flagged, and you can see the dude. I'm not even going to get into that, but I was making these slides, and that's exactly how I was feeling when I remembered how it felt, right? Like we were doing so well. And go back in history and look at what day November 27th is, and I guarantee you it'll bring just absolute tears to your eyes, because we got disabled right before Black Friday. And yeah, I mean, this picture says it all. I don't need to say much about it, but the picture says it all. I hope that you're looking at the picture, because that's really how we felt. But right before Black Friday, like, we were about to start cranking like 100K days on Black Friday. But you know, it is what it is. Ad account got flagged. We went back down to pretty much doing nothing during Black Friday. But I can tell you some good news. This was a blessing in disguise, because the results that I'm going to show you in the next case study are going to absolutely blow your mind. And like I said, this policy violation, we thought it was the end of us, but it was really the beginning, right? Like, this really, it was kind of a wake-up call, and we really slapped on the next ad account that we went to. And I'm excited for you to see it. I'm gonna go make those slides this week. Hopefully the video will be out soon. But I hope that you liked this case study, and I hope that it gave you some good value and got some excitement out of it, and a good laugh at this guy trying to shoot himself here in the end. But you know, that's how it be sometimes. But this is Noah Brewer. I hope that this was valuable to you, and I'm out. Peace.